Okay, are you ready? Yeah, you sure? Okay. Okay, so let's look at the questions, and if you like to ask anything or add anything as we go along, please feel free to do so. We don't have to have a very strict format or anything, so please feel free to kind of add things as we go along here. So, okay, so here we go. So this is the first question. I remember reading about Ajahn talking to workers and laborers in a harsh tone. Ajahn Sumedho, it says in parentheses. Does that mean that, is it from Ajahn Sumedho or something? In one of his books maybe? Okay. Is there a time and place to talk harshly to others? Sometimes a harsh word can stop something happening. Sometimes some people only react to the harsh approach. What is the consequence of this? Sometimes maybe you have to be a bit firm, perhaps. Sometimes you have to be a bit maybe assertive. You have to kind of lay down the law or whatever. Sometimes you have to say things. But I'm not sure if harshness is really what it is about, because harshness implies a lack of feeling, a lack of compassion and understanding. And sometimes it's not a lack of compassion, it's more like you just, if a kid is about to run across the street and be run over by a car, then you shout out. It doesn't mean that you are harsh. It just means that you realize, now is the time to shout, otherwise it's going to be too late. So I don't know if harsh is quite the right word, but I would say, yes, sometimes it's probably good to be loud. Good to be loud, that's right, or to be firm, or to be a bit assertive or whatever, and say things as they are. And I think this is okay. But it should always be based on compassion. Yeah, it should always be based on positive feelings, because otherwise it also feels. It's interesting. Yeah, one of the things you notice as a monk is that sometimes if someone is very pure and very kind, it's amazing what they can get away with in terms of speech and actions and things. Have you noticed that before? Someone who is very pure, they can kind of say things that ordinary people cannot say. And it may seem harsh if you look at it from a distance, but when you look close up, it actually is not really harsh at all. It's just a way of kind of getting people going. And things like, there was a famous story of, you probably heard this before, but there's a famous story in Thailand of Ajahn, and there was I think the Vesak celebration or something like that, and everyone from the district was there, large number of people. And so Ajahn asked them, it was Vesak, maybe hundreds of people, maybe 1,000 people or whatever. So he asked them, how many of you keep the 5 precepts? Because it was going to give them the 5 precepts. Usually in Thailand, if you don't want to keep the 5, you go, you hold your behind your back and you kind of hold one finger down like this. So 4 precepts, yeah, or 3 or whatever it is. It's kind of some trick of the finger. So he asked them, how many of you keep the 5 precepts? And I think there was maybe 1,000 people. 2 people raised their hand. This is in the heart of kind of Buddhist Thailand. I mean, the Isan province, the northeast of Thailand, is the most Buddhist of all of Thailand, and Thailand is very, very Buddhist. So 2 people raised their hand, and then what Ajahn said? Some of you probably know. Yes, Ajahn said. He said, "I can't say this because only you have to be Ajahn to say this." But he said, "You're all dog shit." That's what he said. And that is a bad thing to say. It's really, really bad thing to say. It's kind of double whammy, if you like, when you say that. And this is the thing. But he can get away with that because everyone knows that he is really coming from kindness and caring for them. He's just making a really strong statement. Yeah, he's not being harsh. He's just being, I don't know, super duper direct. I'm not sure what the right word is. So, and this is the thing, if you have a certain character, you can get away with things that ordinary people cannot get away with, and people will take it in the right way. So it's all about the situation, knowing the circumstance, knowing the feeling for the place, and then it's interesting. So I don't know if Ajahn was harsh. Maybe he could. I don't know if he ever was. No, I'm not sure. I was never there, but I don't think we should jump to conclusions too easily about that. Okay. Anyway, next question. Ajahn, concerning difficult people and how to have compassion for them. My father has, in his later years, unfortunately become a difficult person. At times he can be overbearing, fixed with his own actions, and I think upset the balance and harmony within the family. How can I best help him in my capacity as a daughter? Thank you, Ajahn. This is life. People are difficult, and sometimes the best thing to do is often to. You can't really change other people. People have their own kind of path. They have their own way. You just don't know what's going to happen with them, and so you just have to have compassion for your dad. He probably doesn't want to be like this. I think what happens sometimes when you get old is that you kind of, your natural tendencies during our life, we tend to hold back a little bit. We don't allow all our natural tendencies to come out because we realize it's bad. But as you get older, you become more relaxed, So sometimes they say that when you get old, you become like a stereotype of yourself, or you become an exaggerated version of yourself almost. I think in part because you relax more and you just don't care and you allow things to be. So it could be that these tendencies have been in your father all along, and that now that he's getting old, they're kind of becoming more pronounced for these particular reasons. So don't try too hard to change him. In fact, don't try to change him at all. Allow him to be who he is. He has to realize that there is a problem, and when he realizes, he will probably do something about it. But the more you try to change him, the more difficult it is going to be, and he's going to object to that. He's not going to he's going to be defensive and going to find it difficult. So usually it is not advisable to try to change anybody. It usually has bad consequences. So be kind, be caring. Tell him the qualities that you like in him. That usually is a kind of way of bribing somebody to continue with those qualities. And it often goes to the heart of people when you tell them the qualities you like about them. Dad, I really appreciate these qualities in you, Or, you have been a wonderful dad for all these years. Don't tell him what it is like now, but tell him for all these years you're such a wonderful father. Be kind, be nice. It always goes to the heart of people when you are kind to them. This is what I noticed with my relationship in my family. It is when I started to be kind that things actually started to open up. As long as I was trying to convert them to Buddhism, nothing worked. That was a dead end. Don't try to convert them. Do the things whereby they actually start to see the positive in this for themselves. So be kind to them. Find new ways of being the most dearest daughter of all daughters. And usually it goes to the heart of people. Actually, we need to do more things with each other all the time. We should say more how much we appreciate each other, because there is so much in a place like the BF or even in family life. Often there's a lot of good qualities around. There's a lot to be praised. But very often we focus on the negative things. We see all the bad things instead of seeing the good things. Actually, there's a lot of good things to be seen. So say that sometimes. Say it to your work colleagues. Say it to your BF colleagues. Say it to your family members. Remind them of the things that you appreciate in them. Stand back a little bit. Think about the things that you appreciate. Because sometimes you forget yourself what you appreciate in the people around you. And tell them that. And usually it opens people up. And then once they're opened up, then they will be more open for seeing themselves as they actually are. Don't tell them off as soon as they open up, because then you will close them down again. Allow them to find out for themselves. But we need, I think, more kindness goes a long way in this world. Anyway, I'm not saying it's going to work, but just do your best and see what happens. Okay. Dear Ajahn, thank you for your detailed teaching today. my question, for people who one feels aversion towards, one should remind oneself of the good qualities of the person in order to try and overcome such feelings. How does one sustain such practice if one consistently experiences ill will and harm from the other person? Can you advise, please? Thank you, with metta. If you consistently feel bad things, then you have to learn to forgive those bad qualities. Yeah. So it is always a mixture of seeing the good and also forgiving the bad. So remember the bad qualities. Sometimes I think it's amazing that there are so many good qualities in this world. Yeah. There's so many things that kind of should lead everyone to be really bad. Bad kind of forces everywhere, especially when you... the best thing to do is to turn off your TV, never watch the news, because that really influences you in a bad way. Instead, look at your fellow people in the community, and often you feel much better because of that. But, be surprised that there even are any good qualities in people around you. What a wonderful thing it is that there are good qualities, and then forgive the bad things. It is not surprising that there should be bad things when there's so much conditioning that turns you in the wrong way. It is not really surprising at all. And then when you realize that this person has been conditioned in this way for whatever reason in this life or past lives or whatever, then forgive. They don't know what they're doing. They have no idea what's really happening. And forgiveness and compassion is such a powerful thing. Of course, this doesn't mean that you put yourself in harm's way all the time. When someone is difficult and they harm you and they make life difficult for you, then make sure that you have enough space from that person. Because otherwise, if you haven't got enough space, then it will actually be very difficult and you will suffer a lot and it will be very hard. So make sure you get enough space to be able to bring up those positive feelings of compassion and kindness. And then you will be okay here. So being compassionate doesn't mean that you hang out with that person a lot and then experience a lot of suffering here, because we have to look after ourselves. We have to know what we can deal with and what we can't. But you can always forgive. And the forgiveness does not mean that you have to be in their presence. You can do that from a distance. Forgiveness is always possible. And even if you never see that person again, you can still forgive them. So just... find that right balance between seeing the positive and forgiving, and then you should be okay here. In theory. See what happens. It's hard. It's easy to say these things, but sometimes hard to do. So we just have to do our best. Okay. How do we establish satima, i.e. mindfulness, as a preliminary to Satipathana practice? Can walking meditation, a subha, be an auxiliary meditation for greater clarity of mind before Satipathana? Yes, it can be. You can do walking meditation to kind of just allow your mind to clear. As I said before, one of the main things that stop you from having mindfulness established is that your mind is tired. You have sloth and torpor. Maybe your mind is really restless because you've been working really hard and talking a lot and doing things. So for these things to disappear, and this is often the first thing that you have to disappear, is that you have to just relax. Allow things to be here. Allow things to kind of fade away. And they do after a while. And one way of doing that is precisely walking meditation. And allowing things to fade away that way. Or you can just sit there and you can nod a little bit. You are welcome to nod in this crowd. Is that all right? Can everyone nod here? You can nod here. There's no kind of not prohibited to nod in this crowd. So you are allowed to nod in this place. One of my very quite close Buddhist friends, a monk, he always nods every time he sits down. But he's a good meditator. This is the weird thing. He's actually a good meditator. It's just that he always kind of starts out, tired because of whatever, and then he kind of comes together, and then he meditates, and it goes really deeply after that. So see how it goes. As subha practice, you can, but it really depends. It depends on what kind of lifestyle you have, and depends on the circumstances. You can try, see if it works. But I think for a lot of people, it's not very pleasant and very useful. But try. Sometimes it actually works. Some people say it works, so it may actually work out for you. But the main thing that gives rise to mindfulness, establishing mindfulness in the present, really depends on how you live your life. The most important thing is how you live your life in the long run. That is what really matters. What is your daily routine like? How do you treat your members of your family? How you treat your work colleagues? How do you treat random people in the street? Do you? No. All of these things, this is what matters. How do you speak to people? Do you do little random acts of generosity all the time? Do lots of random acts of generosity. Can I, bring you a cup of water or a cup of tea at the office? Do something nice to your fellow workers. Say something to them that they haven't really heard before. There's so many things we can do to be kind. And just remind yourself of the importance of these things. Remind yourself that happiness in this world comes from how you live, how you. The process is much more important than the result in how we feel about things. When eventually you die, you're never going to think about the things that you achieve. The achievements are irrelevant. What you're going to think about is how you treated people along the way. That is why either you're going to feel happy about yourself or you're going to have regrets. It's a process that matters. So remember this. And there's so many opportunities if you really want to go for it. And if you're able to live this consistently like this, to be kind to people around you, you come down and you meditate, and mindfulness will come back very quickly here. Even if you never meditate at all during daily life, it can be very useful to meditate because it helps you to establish a little bit of mindfulness and kindness and all of these things. But even if you don't meditate so much, as long as you are able to be kind, have a good heart, treat people well, be compassionate and all these things, meditation is going to come back quickly again once you go on a retreat. Remember the causes for meditation. I didn't actually mention this today. I should have mentioned this because one of the little suttas in the Satipathana Sutta, it actually says that the two foundations for Satipatthana is Ujjukaditti and Sila. I'm just trying to talk while I'm pulling this over so we don't waste any time because time goes so fast. So this sutta is where? This is the wrong one. This is the that sutta. Okay. Let's see if I can find this sutta. Not that it matters all that much because we've been talking about these things anyway. But let's have a quick look. See if we can find this little sutta. I think. Okay, so here you are. Yeah, so this is a sutta where this monk. Yeah, he comes to the Buddha and he says to the Buddha, "Sir, may the Buddha teach me the Dhamma in brief. May the Holy One teach me the Dhamma in brief. Hopefully, I can understand the meaning of what the Buddha says. Hopefully, I can be an heir of the Buddha's teachings." Well then, mendicant, you should purify the starting point of skillful qualities. What is the starting point of skillful qualities? Well-purified ethics and correct view. Yeah, I've been talking a lot about ethics, about being kind and about living well and thinking in the right way, but I haven't said much about correct view. The Pali for correct view here is Ujjuka Ditti. And so just to so there you go, so well purified ethics and correct view. Sila, suvisuddhang, well purified, and ditti cha ujjuka or ujjuka ditti. So that ujju means straight. Is it related to the English words straight and right? Actually, etymologically related, same root. And so straight view is actually a very important part of the ability to practice mindfulness meditation. Why is that? What does it mean that right view is a support for meditation? And it means, it can mean a number of things. It can mean that, for example, if you're going to do Satipatthana meditation, you have to have a certain amount of right view because you are going to it's about seeing things according to reality, so you have to have a foundation to take it further, otherwise you're going to have problems. But what it also means is that you value your meditation practice. Yeah, this is a very important part. Sometimes we think we're going to meditate, but we don't necessarily value it enough. We don't understand why it really matters. So you sit down and then you think about other things. Yeah, you think about your work, your family, your problems. Has it ever happened to you? It would be a miracle if it hadn't happened to you. I would be very impressed. So we think about these things. Why is that? And the reason why you think about these other things is because you value them more than your meditation practice. And this is one of the problems with the kind of the modern mindfulness movement. Yeah, the modern mindfulness movement has a lot of good things going for it. It's helping people of all kinds and in all ways. So it is useful in many ways. But there is a limited, and the reason why mindfulness movement is limited is because it takes out one factor of the Noble Eightfold Path and doesn't really talk about the other ones. Doesn't say anything about right view. You don't talk about rebirth when you do mindfulness practice. Yeah, that's the last thing you talk about because it's supposed to be secular, not really have any religious affiliation and all of that. But that is its Achilles heel. That is its weakness. And the reason why it is a weakness is because whatever you value the most in life is what you're going to think about. So in the mindfulness movement, they do the mindfulness meditation to improve their life, to become a better parent, a better child, a better husband, a better wife, a better whatever, a better worker at work, a better soldier in the army. That's what they do as well, yeah? You get this in the US, apparently they use mindfulness to kind of improve your ability as a soldier. But the point here is that you do the mindfulness practice to improve your ability to function in the world. So, in other words, the function in the world is the priority. Mindfulness is to support that. And then, of course, when you meditate, you think about those things because they're more important. But if you have the Buddhist kind of view and you actually think of meditation as the priority, why? Because you understand that, happiness actually is to be found on the spiritual path rather than in the world. So when you sit down, that is your priority, because your values are aligned with the meditation practice. The world is out of control. Why am I even thinking about the world that is out of control? Let me come back to the spiritual practice. Then when those things come together, then you prioritize the meditation, then it's easy to stay with the breath, because that's your priority. This is how right view, ujjukaditi, correct view here, supports your meditation in a very immediate sense, because you think about the world in the right way. You understand where real satisfaction and contentment can be found. So this is a very important part of the question you're asking. Yeah, how can you get this mindfulness? This is sometimes more important than all of these other practices that you do, because then you kind of have the hierarchy of what is important coming in the right sequence. Yeah, so right view gives mindfulness an agenda which is to put an end to suffering. Yeah, you could put it that way, yeah. But but also kind of more, yeah, I guess that's a kind of very big agenda, yeah, put an end to suffering. But it's also, I think, more immediate as well. You are developing your mind. You know that in your inner life you can do something about. I have some ability to change my inner well-being just by working on it directly. And then you remind yourself of how uncertain the world is, how incredibly uncertain it is what's going to happen next in the world, or you're either in your private life or the world at large, or all of these kind of things. And because it is so out of control, because it really is outside of us, it is really out of control, our inner life we can do something about. So remind yourself where you can actually do something, and you prioritize that instead of prioritizing things that are inherently uncontrollable. So you're right. If that works for you, you can. Yeah, you prioritize the things that are suffering, but don't make it too kind of airy-fairy and kind of up in the sky, some kind of thing which isn't. Make it something tangible that you really can relate to properly. End of suffering is hard to really relate to fully, perhaps, but whatever works for you is, of course, is going to be good. Yeah, absolutely. So, and this is why you find, for example, what is samma samadhi, what is right samadhi on the Buddhist path, and it is defined as a jhana together with the seven factors. So that's all matters enormously. Yeah. Okay. Whoa, okay. Quick. Ajahn, thank you for the wonderful sharing. Question: is there any sequence to follow keen, aware, and mindful here? And is aware and mindful same meaning here? Keen, aware, and mindful. These are not really a sequence. These are three qualities that should be present when you do the Satipathana meditation. Yeah, when you do the breath meditation, you want to be mindful. You want to have the full awareness, which is the sampajanya, and also you want to have that keenness of energy. Yeah, the bright mind, which is kind of keen, where you really are enjoying yourself. These are qualities to look for. These qualities usually go together to some extent. If you are really mindful, you also tend to have energy. If you have energy, you are mindful. They are not really separate. The sampajanya is a little bit more tricky because it takes a bit of wisdom as well, knowing what to look at, having the yoniso manasikara, and all of these kind of things. So that is a bit different. But you very often they come together. If you've been around the Buddhist scene for a while, then you're going to have quite a bit of sampajanya. You know what to do. You know that when you are, sitting in meditation and you're thinking about your next meal, you know that is not the right way. Yeah, so your sampajanya is already kind of kicking in there. Yeah? So is awareness and mindfulness the same thing? Well, that kind of sort of replies to that question. And not exactly the same thing, but they are related to each other. If you don't have mindfulness, then sampajanya is not going to work. But it is possible to have mindfulness without sampajanya. So you need that wisdom aspect as well to direct the mind in the right place. Okay. So, dear Ajahn, per sutta, they breathe in observing cessation, breathe in observing letting go. They breathe out observing letting go. Are cessation, letting go, mind-constructed concepts? Could you elaborate on observing letting go? Letting go is letting go all concepts in order to how does the observing come about? Is it another hard word to mean just knowing? Anicca nupassi. It means like observing or following along or being aware or whatever. So, so the point here, really, so cessation, letting go, mind constructs. The point here really is that you look back on the process. Yeah, you look back on the process that you have been through, and then you see how the letting go happened in that process. So that is how you come to understand what happened. So observing his means like almost like recollecting, anupassana. Yeah, it's very related to anusati probably. So you remember that process you have been through. That is what you focus on. Yeah. So the thing is when you go through the process of mindfulness of breathing, all the five khandhas are gradually fading away until they cease at various levels and various points. Yeah, that is what you're seeing. And then when you see that, then the insight becomes more powerful. There's already some degree of insight when you go through it, but it's really when you reflect afterwards it becomes clear. And that is one reason. You may remember the very first meditation we did this morning. I suggested that you reflect on it afterwards. Yeah, reflect what works. And that reflection of what works is essentially this kind of reflection. Very similar to this. Because what is it that works? Well, what is it that works? Just relax, yeah, allow things to be, allow things to become peaceful, and you will notice the few times when the meditation really does come together, whenever that is, you will see how that process works. So learn from that. Don't just do the meditation, then get up, because then you forget about it. You don't take away the wisdom. Learn from those successes that you have. Learn from the failures as well, but it's much more easy to learn from success than failure. Because when you succeed, you have the clarity of mind that comes with it. When you fail, you may just be confused, so you don't really, it's much more difficult to learn from a confused mind than a clear mind. So it refers back to that, yeah? So you breathe out, observing, letting go. I see this as looking back on the process, and then that is the observation. Yeah. So that's okay. So yeah. So the letting go here and cessation. I should probably make a difference between that and so here the cessation is the. Let me sure I get the right words here because not entirely sure. Free. Okay, letting go. So there we are. So that's the. So it's the last one. Is the Patinissaganuppassi. So, okay, I should maybe make clear the distinction here because maybe that's what you're talking about. So, first of all, anicca means that things are changing. Yeah, that's really all it means. They are impermanent. So they are changeable. So initially you can see your breath changing, you can see your perceptions changing, and it may not have any particular direction of change. It may come and go, for example. This is the very first and most basic idea of anicca. But anicca, impermanence, has many different levels to it. Yeah. So coming and going is one level. Fading away is a different level. Fading away means there is a direction to the impermanence. It is moving towards diminishing, diminishing, diminishing. That is what fading away means. Then, if that fading away continues far enough, it leads to cessation. Yeah, the complete ending of something. So this is what is going on here. That is one type of impermanence. Now, once you look back on that process, you see that things are ceasing completely. In other words, they're absolutely impermanent. And when you see that actually it is really pleasurable. Yeah, when all of these things cease, you get so happy. You feel all this piti, all the sukha, all the joy in the world, all the tranquility, all these beautiful emotions come from cessation. That gives you an insight into dukkha and sukha. Yeah? And once you see dukkha, probably, you see where the problem lies, then the letting go happens. The letting go here means that you are giving up craving for these things because you know there's no point in craving for dukkha. I don't know about you, but at least for me, craving for dukkha, no good, yeah? So you give up craving, and this is how craving gets destroyed, yeah? Craving, bang, goes out, and that is really here, the idea of letting go or relinquishing things. You don't have craving for these things anymore. And what you are letting go of craving for is the five khandhas, because the five khandhas is what is gradually fading away and ceasing. So the craving for the five khandhas is disappearing. Instead of having panch upadana khandha, you are moving towards pancha khandha. Pancha khandha much better than panch upadana khandha. Does everyone know the difference between Panchakanda and Panchupadana Kanda? Panchupadana Kanda are the five personality groups, yeah? Body, feelings, perceptions, will, and consciousness, affected by upadana, by attachment, by craving, by these kind of things. Panchakanda is the same group without the attachment. And that attachment is what you're letting go of here through this process. And it's fading away because you see it's dukkha. No need to crave for dukkha. This is what is the weird thing, yeah? You see that these things are dukkha, and you realize that all along you've been craving for dukkha. Isn't that kind of weird? This is the weird thing about life. All the things that we want, actually, they turn out down the line to be dukkha. Oh, what dukkha? Okay, question number 2. It seems the thing that is still throughout is the observing or the knowing. Would you clarify, please? The knowing, there is a degree of stillness to the knowing, but the knowing itself is depends on the content of the knowing. Yeah, the knowing has many areas, if you like. For example, the knowing can be divided into the 6 senses. There can be the knowing that is consciousness of sight, of hearing, and then there is the mind consciousness. And these are different areas of knowing, and it is possible, for example, to eliminate the sight consciousness completely, or the hearing consciousness. This is what happens in a jhana state, and all you have left is the mental knowing. And then you realize that consciousness itself, or certain aspects of it, can be turned off, and that too can cease. And then you go through the various levels of jhanas, and as you do that, you are eliminating more aspects of consciousness. So you see from that, you can infer that consciousness is gradually being chipped away at. Certain parts of it are disappearing completely. You start to know that consciousness itself is an impermanent phenomenon. Eventually, that too will cease. Yeah, this is what you see in this thing here. So the knowing is not really constant. There is a kind of knowing there, but the kind of knowing is actually changing as you go through the process. This is really hard to see, and it's really down the track. And you cannot really see this probably without a really deep state of samadhi, because then you see things kind of going. Yeah, so it's way down the track. But of course, that is where it is heading ultimately here. Okay. Hi Bhante, thank you for today's wonderful crash course. I love it. Okay. Question. I think the third and the fourth hindrances are rooted in ill will, but have their effects resulting in increase in delusion. But you mentioned they are categorized under ill will. Is that correct? I think the third and the fourth hindrances are rooted in not just in ill will, but also in desire. In fact, I would say all the hindrances are ultimately rooted in the first one, which is desire. Yeah, and but you're quite right that certainly the result is an increase in delusion, because when you have your mind is kind of restless and all these things, that is certainly a deluded state. So I wouldn't say so much that they are categorized under ill will. It's more that they tend to find an expression through these other two hindrances. If you have a lot of desire, what does that desire lead to? It leads to restlessness. Yeah, it leads to agitation. You're thinking about where you want to be, not where you are. That is the very nature of desire. After a while, all that desiring makes you tired. Yeah, if you think desiring a lot actually tires the mind out. It doesn't give it real energy. It gives it a kind of borrowed energy based on that desire. The real energy of the mind comes from meditation practice, where the mind becomes bright, when it has joy. That is where the real energy is. That is the kind of sustainable energy that you can keep on going and going with for a long period of time. Yeah. So both ill will and desire feed the other hindrances of tiredness and lethargy, and also of restlessness and worry and these things. So for that reason, the most important thing is always to focus on the first two hindrances. And the very first one I would recommend you to focus on is ill will, first of all, because it is the easiest one to deal with. If you can do anything, it is dealing with ill will. I've already given you quite a few hints on how to do that. Deal with that, yeah? And you find that your life becomes so much better if you have less ill will. Yeah, you feel better about yourself, you have more energy, you wake up in the morning energized, your interpersonal relationships get better, because people don't really like people with too much ill will. Isn't that right? If someone has a lot of ill will, it's kind of unpleasant to be around. You don't really want to be around people like that. So if you have a lot of metta and kindness, people get drawn to you. It's easy. Your relationships get nice and comfortable at work, everywhere. And everything becomes much easier as a consequence. So deal with ill will, first of all. Once you have dealt a lot with ill will, you can also deal a little with desire. And the easiest way of dealing with desire, that, from my point of view, is to think kind of this, look at the whole world, as something which is unreliable and uncertain, instead of dealing with specific circumstances, specific desires. Specific desires doesn't really get you very far. But if you take a step back and think of the whole world, the whole everything, of relationships, of everything, to be unreliable, uncertain, not a place to find satisfaction and happiness, you actually withdraw your desire and attachment to everything in the sphere of the five senses. This doesn't make you a cold-hearted person. This doesn't mean you don't care about other people. In fact, it makes you a better person. It just means that you are less attached and you have less problems in that world. So this is where you really, what I say, you should focus the most. And I think that was really the point I was trying to make. When meditation gets very deep, then you will see that these issues, these upakilesas, they may have a life a little bit of their own. So you may have a little bit of restlessness or sloth or tiredness or whatever. But initially, a large part of it comes from the first two hindrances. That is often the real problem. So deal with that, and you will find your mind brightens up pretty much automatically here. Okay. Why did the Buddha teach Kaya, Vedana, Chitta, Dhamma as the four focus of mindfulness? Is it because the worldling takes these four as the vipalasas, anicca, sukha, atta, and beauty here? I think the point of the Buddha rather is to look at where you can see the defilements of mind quite easily, yeah. So you look at areas where it is kind of obvious that there are problems, and these are these areas. And I don't think it has so much to do with vipalasa, because the vipalasa is a word which means a distortion of the mind, yeah. And the distortions of the mind are seeing what is impermanent as permanent, seeing what is dukkha as happy, seeing self where there is no self, and seeing something as beautiful which actually is not. These are the distortions of the mind. But these distortions are very deep and profound, and these are things you usually uncover after samadhi practice. So the point here is not so much at this point to uncover these things. The point here is more like to uncover the defilements of the mind that stop you from entering samadhi. This is the main point of this. And I think this is just a skillful way of uncovering those problems. And it's very closely related to the sequence of watching the breath. Yeah. So this is also one reason. It may quite likely the breath meditation may have come first, and then maybe Satipathana was kind of constructed around that afterwards. Maybe, I'm not sure what came first, but that is a possible way of thinking about this. So it's more to do with how to investigate, to uncover the problems that stop us from entering samadhi. The Dhammanupassana is very interesting because it is a very detailed investigation of defilements, yeah? And this is what kind of makes it fascinating to look at the Dhammanupassana, understanding these defilements in a very profound sense. Yeah, something like that. So, okay. Ajahn, you mentioned it is difficult to remove the subtle defilements. So how do we practice to see and remove them? Is it the same way as the beginning? Please advise. Thank you. So it is obviously the more deep these defilements are, the more hard they are to see. And this is your meditation goes forward, and then you read a natural block in the road. You can't get any further, and that is where the problem arises. Yeah, because you don't know why it isn't go further, and this is where you have to contemplate. So you see your meditation come to a certain point, and then after you come out, you ask yourself, well, what was going on here? Why did it stop at that particular point? So then you investigate, yeah, and you may be able to see that you have certain attachments. You were holding on to certain things. Maybe you won't. Maybe next time what happens, next time you maybe you go a little bit deeper, because sometimes we let go of these attachments more or less by accident without really reflecting on them. And next time when you go a bit deeper, you compare the two meditations, and then you understand that actually it was an attachment to the body, to hearing, to whatever. That was the problem that was hindering me, yeah? And you start to get a feeling for what is going on. So this is one way of doing this. Yes, you start to see what is happening there. But you can also just take your guidance from the Buddha, and you know that the Buddha, he will say that the main problem in this world is that you're holding on to things, especially you're holding on to the body and the five senses, yeah? You have to let go of these things to go into real samadhi. So because you know that, you can just contemplate a little bit the danger in these things, and as you do so, you will gradually overcome it without really having to contemplate too much. So what you really have to do is you have to overcome your attachment to the world. First of all, overcome any ill will and anger you have, then overcome the attachment to the world. And at the same time, you also have to build up the good qualities inside of you. Because when you build up the good qualities inside of you, you're feeling more kind and caring and all of these kind of things. It's as if you have a refuge of happiness inside. And when you have a refuge of happiness inside, it is easier to let go of the things, the other things, because you have somewhere else to go. But you cannot really let go of the body or the senses if there is nothing else which is attractive to you. You have to have something else attractive to hold on to. So try that. I hope that kind of makes sense. So see what happens. Okay, good. What is the purpose of fulfilling the Satipathana? How does a body in the breathing in Majjhima Nikaya 18 fulfill Kaya Nusati? Okay, so what is the purpose of fulfilling Satipathana? The purpose is it makes you happy. That's the purpose. If you want to be happy, fulfill Satipathana practice. If you fulfill the Satipathana practice, it means that you go through all of those stages we have looked at, and those stages, they are full of happiness and peace and all kind of wonderful things. If you fulfill it, you also fulfill the 7 bojjhangas, which is taking you all the way to samadhi and upekkha and the 4 jhanas and all of that. It is really cool stuff. You should really, and this is really kind of, this is it. This is kind of, if you do these things, you will know why it is worthwhile. And the best thing, and just the idea that it is happy and it is peaceful is a good enough idea to give you a hint of what is going on. But many of these things, you have to experience some of these things to really understand what it is about. And then, of course, it leads to liberation. It leads to knowledge and understanding. It leads to the highest happiness. It's what Nibbana is about. It's about the highest happiness, ending all suffering. This is why you want to fulfill this. So if you are keen on the highest happiness, would you like the highest happiness? This is why the Buddha was a pretty good salesman, actually. So he knew what to say. Highest happiness is Nibbana. So, if it is there to be had, why not go for it? Instead of kind of, hanging on to the world and going around and around and around and maybe suffering on. Who knows how long you may be suffering in the future if you keep on going around in this world. Go for the happiness. It's bleeding obvious, isn't it? Go for the happiness. So this is why you want to fulfill Satipatthana. Freedom, liberation, yay, from all of these oppressive things. How does the body in the breathing, so here it says, for I say that the in-breaths and out-breaths are an aspect of the body, that's why at the time a mendicant is meditating, observing an aspect of the body, all of these things, so that's why at that time, where does it say? I'm a bit lost here now, but okay. Anyway, so that's how you fulfill the. Anyway, so this is how you fulfill it, the body contemplation, by doing it. By watching the breath. Is that what you mean here? Body in, breathing. So you fulfill the body contemplation by watching the breath. Why is that? Well, because the purpose of the body contemplation is largely fulfilled. You have then overcome the body to a large extent. You're moving on to the feelings instead. You're moving into a new area. So because of that, you have kind of fulfilled that part of the practice. And in large part, you have left the body behind. And for that reason, you can move on. It could be argued that you could do more body contemplation as well, because with every stage of this path, it is good to let go of the body a little bit more. So even when you have some bliss and things happening, still the body is often there in the background, including the breath. And so body contemplation can be used all the way along, but largely it is fulfilled when you get to that point and you are then moving on to the Vedananupassana instead. So the point is that breathing, doing that, fulfills the same purpose as watching the 31 parts of the body. The same purpose is fulfilled, which is the letting go of the body, and that's why it fulfills it. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, oh, absolutely, yeah. So jhana is about letting go of the body, exactly. So this is one of the requirements on the path, absolutely, yeah. Yep. So, yeah. Is everyone okay? Everyone not okay? Everyone want to complain or say something? No, everyone okay? Okay, good. So please, just if you're not okay, let me know, and then we'll change course a little bit. Okay, next one. Namo Buddhaya, Ajahn. Is it necessary for one to meditate upon a dead body and also meditate at the graveyard at night? Absolutely necessary. If you don't do that, you haven't got a chance. Yeah, this is kind of basic. This is 101 Buddhism. Go to the graveyard and... is it necessary? It is not necessary. These are part of the Satipathana Sutta, the cemetery contemplations, and they can be useful sometimes, but it's certainly not necessary. So what does it feel like to go? I heard that you had some cemetery meditation with the VF a while ago, one of the monks, Venerable COVID or something like that. Was that good? Was it useful? Did you enjoy? Yeah? You enjoyed? Okay. So one of the nice things, in Singapore, it's so hard to find the peaceful places, yeah? But if you go to the cemetery, whoa, peaceful. This is the good thing. So sometimes you have to kind of take your opportunities wherever they are. Either that or go to the bottom of the ocean. These are the two possibilities. So take your opportunities. Yeah? Sometimes you can find a really nice spot like that, and then it is great for meditation practice. Unless you feel too afraid. If you're really, really afraid, then it may not be so good. But if you're only a little bit afraid, sometimes it sharpens up your mindfulness if you're a little bit afraid, yeah. You really become really sharp. That can be very helpful. So it can be nice to meditate in a cemetery. I don't know how people feel in Singapore, but I know in Thailand people are really afraid of cemeteries, yeah. And the Thai monks, you can't drag them to a cemetery to contemplate, because Thailand is a country full of ghost stories. And you have been told ghost stories since you were 0 years old, and you have kind of been, it's like it was more important than kind of, the food you get almost, and you get full of ghost stories, and by the time you are 6 years old, you are fearful of all ghosts and really afraid of going to the cemeteries. But I don't think it's quite like that in Singapore. So it's very strange when you are a monk from the West. We don't have many ghost stories in the West in the same way. So cemetery is no big deal, yeah. But if you have been talked all of these things, then you're really afraid of cemeteries. So cemeteries can be nice. It can be peaceful. It reminds you of death, yeah, around you. It's all around you. And if you see a ghost, it's a bonus. Seeing a ghost is good, isn't it? If you see a ghost, what is nice about that? It opens up a window to a different reality. And the vast majority of people have no idea about that different reality. Yeah, we kind of, ghosts, superstitious, Buddhist, whatever. But when you see it, it's like, whoa, it's true. And this is the beauty of it, yeah, because it opens up that window and it allows you to feel confident that there is a greater reality out there. And that opens up the Dhamma, it opens up the Buddhist teachings, opens up all of these things in a very beautiful way. So when you see ghosts, say, thank you, ghost, for coming to visit me. Yeah, what a wonderful, please come again in the future. So this is kind of the right attitude, yeah? And usually ghosts, they are just afraid anyway. They maybe want you to make some merit for them or something, but they're usually fearful, and they are full of dukkha, much more dukkha than we have. So have compassion for them, the ghosts. So if all of these things kind of make sense to you, go to the cemetery here. Especially Do they have aircon at the cemetery? No, no aircon. Oh, okay. So go at night, yeah, when it's cool. Even more interesting when you go there at night when it's cool. So try it out and see what happens. It's not a requirement, but it can be useful in a number of ways. So see how it works for you. Okay. Once I practiced on letting go, I was stilled and saw myself leaving my body. May I have your kind advice, please? Okay, that's kind of interesting, isn't it? You saw yourself leaving your body. I don't know what that is. It is probably, I don't know if it is a real leaving of the body. Probably it is a mental construct. Yeah, your mind kind of the mind is very creative. It can do all kind of things. So probably the mind just constructed this. And that's okay. Yeah, it doesn't matter if the mind constructs these things. Very often in meditation practice, the mind will do all kind of weird stuff. And the people have large number of strange experiences in the meditation practice. A lot of the time, let it be. Don't worry about it. Carry on. Usually it doesn't do anything for you, either good or bad. It is just a imagination, a creation of the mind. Mind is very creative, and the more peaceful the mind is, the more powerful, the more energy it has, the more ability it has to create all kinds of stuff. And many people see scary things, or not many, some people see scary things in meditation. Actually, you don't feel so scared anymore because you are very peaceful, so you can usually deal with these things. Some people see what looks like past lives, but actually it's not very reliable because the meditation isn't deep enough yet. Some people see other realms. Some people just see weird stuff. Yeah, you don't know what it actually is. And so just don't worry too much about that. If it was you saw yourself leaving the body, probably it was a construct of the mind. So just stay with it and see what happens. Yeah, don't worry about it. If it scares you and you feel ill at ease, then of course be a little bit careful because you don't want to go down too far down that track. So if you feel scared, especially if you feel really scared, yeah, or you feel deluded or whatever, then open your eyes and come out of your meditation. But if it isn't a problem and you are just kind of going along with it and you're just experiencing something interesting, keep going and see what happens. Yeah, and what happens usually is that the image will disappear and then you carry on with your meditation afterwards. That's usually what happens. But still, it's interesting. I don't know if I have answered your question correctly. Maybe it was a real experience of leaving the body. Could be. Some people have out-of-body experiences, so it could be that. But I don't know because I don't know precisely enough what was happening with you at the time. Okay, let's move on. Oh, still a few left. Okay. Wow, this is really cheating, isn't it? 4 questions in one. So okay. Anyway, how does right livelihood lead to right effort? Okay, so the sequence of the Noble Eightfold Path, the sequence which is the sequence of morality. First of all, you have Samma Vacha, then Samma Kammanta, right action, then Samma Ajiva, which is right livelihood. I think the sequence of those 3 is not so important. Yeah, the other parts are much more important. With these 3, it is a little bit random, I think. And if you look at other parts of the Sutta Pitaka, if you look at the gradual training that we saw before, there it's actually the other way around. First comes right action, then right speech. So to me, that points to the fact that right action and right speech are really 2 sides of the same 2 sides of basic morality, and it doesn't matter which sequence they come in. When it comes to right livelihood, it is really part of right action, usually, maybe also part of right speech, so it all kind of goes together. So really, I think the right way of thinking about it is how it is that right speech, right action, and right livelihood together, the 3 of them together, lead to right effort. That is the right way. And the way that works is that, first of all, you deal with the coarser aspects of immorality, yeah, or of lack of virtue. And once you have dealt with the coarser aspects, you come back to the more refined aspects. That is a way to think about that evolution, one leading to the next one. There is a nice sutta in the Anguttara Nikaya 3s, which talks about the refinement of the mind has to happen gradually, and if it doesn't happen gradually, then it doesn't work. So it's important to to remember the gradual sequence of things. Otherwise, it may not work out. So let's see if we can find that sutta. This is the one. The panner. This is the one. Panning means like you are trying to find nuggets of gold, in the river. So the panner. So here you see. So this is how gold is purified. And when you purify gold, you have to do it gradually. You start with the coarse things, the sand, the soil, and the gravel. When that is eliminated, you do the medium corruptions, fine grit, coarse sand. When that is done, you do the fine corruptions, fine sand, black grime. And when that's eliminated, only the gold dust is left. And when only the gold dust is left, but it's not yet settled, the dross is not totally gone. You get rid of the dross as well. So it's stage by stage, In the same way, the mind should also be purified stage by stage. First, the coarse corruptions, bad bodily, verbal, and mental conduct, Then the middling corruptions, sensual, malicious, and cruel thoughts. Then the fine corruptions, thought of family, country, and being looked up to. So this is in your meditation, you don't think about your family. You let that go for the meditation period. Don't think about your country. Don't think about your reputation, being looked up to. All of that, you let go of that. And then at the very end, you let go of even more subtle things, thought about the teaching. I think what it actually means, it means thoughts that accord with the Dhamma is what I think it means. In other words, thoughts that are kind of kind and these kind of things, because they also have to be eliminated. So there's a gradual thing there. And once you get that gradual thing right, starting off with the course actions, then moving on to the mind, then you are on the right track. Anyway, so next one. Renunciation as an antidote to desire attachment. This often feels like a theoretical concept. How do we practice renunciation in practical terms so that we reduce our desires attachment to people and objects? Yes, something like that. Okay, so again, the idea here, the way that you renounce is to understand the dukkha in those things that you should renounce, So how do you understand the dukkha in things that you attach to? And this is the idea I was mentioning before, the idea that you don't need to look at individual things. Think about the whole world, the whole sensory world, how it is out of control, how people get sick and die, even the people who are closest to you, how your job is uncertain, how suddenly you are eliminated, you're not needed anymore, how the climate change is kind of the whole world. Look at Australia now. They have these terrible fires in Australia. In large part comes because of climate change, according to the scientists. Look at the world of politics. In your neighboring country, Malaysia, you had these massive scandals going on not so long ago. 1MDB thing, that kind of stuff. Really big things, and have been kind of in the news around the world. Look at in the Europe with the UK, the Brexit. Look at the US with Donald Trump. Look at all of these things, and it feels sometimes you wonder where the world is heading. It is out of control. That's why you wonder where it's heading. You cannot control these things. We just don't know what's going to happen next. And this is kind of the whole world of the five senses. Everything around us is so unpredictable and so uncertain. Why? Because it is not really in our ability to control these things. So instead, you move to things that you can do something about. Things you can do something about is your own conduct, how you think about the world, how you relate to other people. That is where you do something. Why? Because it is in your power. And actually, you feel empowered when you do that. In that way, you let go of attachments to the world. You still deal with the world in a good way. You still treat people well because that is actually part of the spiritual path, but you don't attach to the outcome. Yeah, you're kind to other people. If they're not kind back, okay, it's not your problem. But generally they will be kind back if you are kind to them. And this way you let go of things. So take that big view. That's what I recommend. And this is also found in the suttas. One of the teachings of the Buddha is the sabbaloka anabhirattasan. Yeah? I'd like to say that because it sounds really impressive when people hear that long Pali word. So the sabbaloka, sabba means all. Loka is the world, that means the entire world. Anabhirati means like non-delight, non-interest, and sanya is perception. The perception of non-interest in the entire world. That's what it means. So you take the whole world as such, everything is just out of control. There's nothing much you can do about it. And when you get that, then what happens is you just let go. Yeah, you start to release it all. You lose your interest in that. When you read about politics, sometimes you read about politics and you think that you're happy when the right person gets elected or gets into government, but after a while you realize it is just so uncertain. Next time around the wrong person gets elected, and then after a while, okay, forget about all of that. It's out of control. No idea what's going to happen next. Don't take refuge in the world outside. Having refuge in the world outside means that you have expectations for the world. You're hoping that the world will get its act together, but you just don't know. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. And even if it does get its act together, it will only be for some time until it doesn't get its act together again. It loses its act, or whatever that is called, when you don't get your act together. So you it always changing like that. The whole thing, the whole blooming thing is just completely uninteresting. The world is full of problems and there's no solutions. Or if there are solutions, they're only temporary. They come and go. You get a solution for a while, then it's gone again. This is the Buddhist idea of kind of cyclical nature of time, where things just go round and around and round, and you come back roughly to where you started out. This is what happens when you go from one life to the next one. This is what happens when the universe goes from one universe to the next. It's not exactly the same as it was last time, but essentially all the problems are the same. All the difficulties need to be solved again, from scratch. After a while you get fed up with having to solve the same problem 1 billion times. I'm fed up with solving the same blooming problem. Now, time to get out of here. So this is a way of kind of having a broad picture of things. And then the renunciation is seeing that, losing the interest in that, and then withdrawing, and then renunciation happens as a matter of an effect of that kind of way of looking at the world. Number 3, is it okay to have pranayama, breathing exercise, as a preliminary before meditation? I find that it really helps to stabilize the mind and prep it for meditation. Good. Do the pranayama, what is it? Pranayana, whatever. Please do that. If it works, if it makes you peaceful, of course you can do it. Anything that you find makes you peaceful and helps you to get established in meditation is good. It's helpful. If you come back home and you're really stressed out, you want to put on some nice music, put on some nice music. Some piano music, or a bit of chanting, or whatever it is that you like. Put it on. Don't put on heavy metal, of course. But some nice classical music or piano music is okay. Don't think that because you are a Buddhist you cannot have any sensual enjoyment. Some sensual enjoyment leads you towards peace. You can't avoid sensual enjoyment anyway, so just do refined sensual enjoyment, and then gradually you move away from that as well down the track. But it's okay. If it helps you in a positive way, use it in that way. And then turn it off, and then you can go and meditate once you feel your mind is in the right state. So absolutely, pranayama is sounds like a very innocent and nice practice, so keep on doing that. Earlier you mentioned to first observe the state of mind, contemplate afterwards on why it arose, and then to take steps to avoid it. By avoiding, do you mean renouncing? Well, there's many ways of avoiding it, but the very fact that you already have observed the problem means that when you meditate, your mind is less likely to go there because you have already seen the problem, so the mind will automatically steer away from that. But also what it means is that because you have seen the problem, next time you come to it, you will understand what is going on, and then you will have the ability to steer away from it at that particular point. Yeah, you will be mind. Okay, this is what I've seen before, and because you have investigated it properly, you have an idea of what is happening, why it is happening, and then you can steer away from that problem. It's happening because of a little bit of ill will towards something or someone, a little bit of desire for something silly or stupid that isn't really worthwhile, yeah? So, okay, let go of that. And then you carry on and you move onwards. So this is how that insight, that contemplation, that clear seeing helps you when you get to the same problem in the future, because now you know what is going on. Often we don't really know. We have never investigated these very subtle aspects of the mind before. So because that we don't really know, and because you don't really know, you are kind of lost when you get to these things. Okay. So I will go on a little bit longer just to finish these things off. So please feel free, if you'd like to leave, you're always free to do so, of course. When I saw the nimitta, the light was overpowering and hurt my closed eyes. I felt agitated. Okay, it hurt your closed eyes. Well, the nimitta is not in the eyes, yeah? So the nimitta is in the mind. So if it hurt your closed eyes, then maybe it was just a perception that you had. Maybe it didn't really hurt your eyes. Maybe just you thought it hurt your eyes because it was so powerful, yeah? And then because you thought it hurt your eyes, you got agitated as a consequence. So next time, look at it more carefully, and you will see that actually it has nothing to do with your eyes. If you open your eyes, you won't see anything. There's no light there. It is a mental thing that you are seeing. So, but it's wonderful. If you have been able to see a nimitta before, it's great. Yeah, it's a wonderful opportunity. And it is right. It is really overpowering. That's kind of the point of it, that it is overpowering, because it overpowers the opposing negative qualities of the mind. It is very powerful stuff when you get to this. So it's not hurtful at all. Yeah, you are able to deal with it. But next time it comes, just be a little bit more circumspect, investigate a little bit more, and you will see that actually there is no danger there. It will never be able to hurt your eyes because it is entirely a mental phenomenon. Dear Ajahn, is the experience of jhana a kind of blissing out? Absolutely. It's super duper blissing out. It's kind of the almost the height of blissing out. One does not use volition, but lets go of everything. Not everything, but a lot. There's still a little bit left. Then how can one collect data to analyze, investigate in the fourth tetrad? You still have experience in the fourth jhana, yeah? So there's no volition, but you have experience. That experience, because your mindfulness is incredibly powerful, it will become a very strong experience. When you come out of the jhana afterwards, wow, you're going to remember that jhana so well. There's nothing in your life that you will remember as well as a jhana experience. It is what Ajahn Brahm calls a positive trauma. Yeah, it's a nice word, isn't it? Positive trauma. You cannot get it out of your mind because it was so incredibly blissful. So guaranteed you will remember it, and you will remember it in great detail. You will understand what it is. So this is how you investigate it afterwards. You see the things that are gone, that have disappeared in the jhana, and then you understand that that must be dukkha. In Majjhima Nikaya 111, Venerable Sariputta describes how we could see many things. Rapture, intention, feeling. The mind does not seem that blissful, but very active instead. Please comment. Thank you, Ajahn. Well, the thing that the reason why you can see these things is that because they are part of one mind state. Yeah, you have one mind state, and this mind state is made up of a number of different factors, and that is what you are seeing. So you are seeing the feelings that you have. You're seeing that the mind is very still. Yeah, you are seeing that there is that perception of those feelings. And so there isn't much that you see. There isn't much going on. Maybe there's a little bit of movement if it is the first jhana. So that is what you are seeing, these little tiny things, but they are part of one thing really, of one perception. Is that perception has different aspects to it. So that is what is going on. That is the first part of the answer to that question. The other part is that Majjhima Nikaya 111, I don't really think it is to be taken all that seriously, because it is quite a strange sutta. It only exists in the Pali Canon, doesn't exist anywhere else. It has a lot of anomalies to it. There's many good reasons to think it was not really spoken by the Buddha or Venerable Sariputta, but that it is a later construction. So it has a certain Abhidhamma kind of feels to it. It has a certain kind of way of looking at things which isn't normal in the suttas. So I wouldn't take it too seriously. If you're going to look at the jhana states, the right place to look is at the standard jhana formulas. And in the standard jhana formulas, first jhana, it says the vivekaja piti sukha, the piti sukha born of seclusion. It says savitaka savichara, it has vitaka and vichara, it has a certain movement of the mind, and that is basically what the first jhana is. And that says enough about the first jhana. All of these additional things that we're talking about here is more like an abhidhamma analysis of the jhanas, and they're not really useful or not something I would worry about if I were you. I would put that to one side. One of the suttas that clearly are later than the other suttas of the Pali Canon. Okay, so I just need to strengthen my ability to read. So it's good to have an excuse, isn't it? Okay, so a few more questions to go. Dear Ajahn, from my meditation classes, I learned that piti is a bodily sensation of pleasure that may cause the body to vibrate and feel extreme pleasure, and sukha is a mental pleasure. From Ajahn description, however, there are different degrees of bliss, so are they both mental in nature? It is true that piti often has a bodily component, but people experience these things in different ways. There is certainly always a mental component to these things. You cannot just have a feeling in the body. Feelings also happen in the mind at the same time. So it is both physical and mental at the same time. Piti comes with you all the way into the first and second jhanas when the body is completely gone. So it must have a mental side to it. That's almost directly evident from the suttas. But it can also often be very physical as well. So it has both sides to it. The sukha is different from piti in that sukha is often what happens when the body becomes very tranquil and peaceful. It's a much deeper kind of happiness, the happiness that comes with it, tranquility and peace. And that is really the difference between the two. But in reality, they're very hard to differentiate when you come across these things the first time. And you don't really need to differentiate them. As long as you can see that your meditation is moving towards deeper happiness and more peace, you know you are on the right track. Why do we have to tranquilize them? Step 7, is this a decision we take or does it naturally happen? It happens naturally. Don't make a decision about it. Keep on watching the breath and things will tranquilize on their own as you keep on going. The reason you want to tranquilize it is because tranquilization is part of the process of entering deep samadhi. That's really why. Okay, how do you know, for example, a mind without delusion? Where is the distinction between knowing and thinking you are knowing in the context of the suttas? Between knowing and think you are knowing in the context of the suttas? That is a good point. Sometimes you don't really know whether you know or not. It's kind of you think you know, but you don't actually know. It's a very common thing. So let's face it. So really, what you have to do is that you have to just over time build up experience. This is an important part of this. You build up experience over time, and as you do so, you start to uncover these things, and you start to understand where delusion truly lies and where it does not lie. The delusion we're talking about here is not the most deepest kind of delusion. They are delusions to do with defilements, and not delusion to do with non-self, which is much deeper and comes later on, comes after the samadhi. Yeah. So this is more like the kind of lesser delusions, delusions like I was mentioning before, the tiredness of the mind, the restlessness, and doubts and these kind of things is really what this is about. So just see what happens as you meditate. The more deeper your meditation is, compare that to when it is less deep, and then you start gradually to uncover these kind of problems. Yeah. Yeah, and always, the way to overcome the idea between thinking that always let's keep an open mind. Don't think too much that Keep an open mind as you possibly can, and then take it further. When the mind becomes very pure, you know that it is not deluded. Yeah, you can feel that the lack of hindrances makes it very. You have a lot of clarity. You have a lot. It feels that the mind is in the right space. You know it almost instinctively that you're doing something right. So keep on going, and you will uncover this as you go. As you go along here. Okay. Does the wisdom arise by itself when conditions ripen? Yes, the wisdom pretty much ripens by itself when conditions ripen, and this is why you practice the Noble Eightfold Path, and you don't have to try very hard when you get to the end. Once you have the right samadhi, the jhana states, then and you have the right view that comes with the beginning of the path, then bang, and then you kind of see things. This is how the wisdom happens. So you don't have to do all that much once the jhanas or the samadhi is deep. Number 2, how to help in removing the view of self. So how do you help to remove the view of self? You start off with the teaching of the Buddha, and so that gives you a sense of right view, so you know where to look and how to look at things in the right way. Then you have a deep state of samadhi, like a jhana state, or other deep samadhis that ideally you have a jhana. You come out of that jhana state, and what you will see is that many of the things have disappeared. Those things that have disappeared, they are non-self, especially if you have no access to them. Say that you go into a state of deep samadhi, you have no longer any access to the body or to the 5 senses. That lack of access means the body is non-self. The 5 hindrances, the 5 senses are non-self. If you can let go of the will completely without having access to the will, unable to do anything, you will realize straight away that the will also is non-self. So this is how you do it. You gain these insights by going into deep samadhi. It becomes obvious. And then you carry this on, deeper and deeper by investigating these things. And you know how to investigate because this is what you're taught in the Anapanasati Sutta. You look for things that have ended. When things have ended, you know there must be non-self because of that. And then in this way you uncover the whole thing until eventually you have a deep insight into all the 5 khandhas. Okay, last question for tonight. Dear Ajahn, thank you for your teachings. If we were to visit Ajahn Ganha, when and where will be the best time to do so? What time do the monks in Thailand receive alms food from lay people? The best time to visit him, he's usually around. He doesn't travel very much, Ajahn Ganha, which is kind of nice. It's much easier to meet him than it is to meet Ajahn Brahm, for example, except when he is here. So you can, sometimes you can just go there and see what happens. You can maybe contact some of the lay people in Thailand. I don't know if you have any contacts. Maybe speak to Eiling. Maybe she will be able to help you out. I'm passing everything on to Eiling. And so usually he is at his monastery, and usually it's not that hard to meet. Usually the monks, they go on alms round early in the morning, so around 7:30 or thereabouts. So then you go out into the right place and you can stand. But Ajahn does not go for alms round, so you won't be able to see him on alms round. He stays in his kuti pretty much all the time. He doesn't do very much at all. He says that, oh, Ajahn Brahm, you need to lose some weight and do more exercise because otherwise you won't live long. But Ajahn doesn't do anything, yeah, and he is really overweight. So it's kind of funny. I don't know how he thinks exactly what he's thinking. That's what he's saying anyway. So just go there. One of the nice things about going there, when you go to visit Ajahn he usually comes out in the evening, and in the evening that's when he meets all the lay people, and then you sit around, all these lay people sitting around, yeah, and they also, everyone is so happy, and they're just happy just sitting there, yeah. It's like you're sitting there, and Ajahn is sitting there, and he may not say very much, yeah. He may say a few things, oh yeah, be kind, speak well, say the right things. But sometimes it is the presence that is more important than actually the words, and the presence can be very powerful. So that is what you should go there for. Go for the presence. He does many strange things, Ajahn. He has a big bowl of sweets next to him. Then he has a little dipper that he dips into this one, and it throws the sweets out. Yeah, so it's like it's raining sweets. So then everyone kind of jumps onto the sweets and gathers them together, yeah, and then you take them back home to Singapore or whatever. This is, and it's nice because the sweets symbolize the sweetness of the teacher, yeah, so it's kind of nice. And then when you come back here and you have them, you're reminded of Ajahn and you remember what he was like. So it's all very kind of touching. It's weird, but because Ajahn is such a powerful person, it doesn't really feel weird. It feels actually quite nice when you're there and you see this. So please check it out, because as far as I'm concerned, he's one of the great treasures of Thailand and one very special person. Very hard to find people like that anywhere in the world, also in Thailand, even though Thailand still has a lot of good forest monks, etc. Still, it is hard to find. Anyway, I don't think I have much more energy left. I'm not like Ajahn I've reached my limit.
Sadhu. Ajahn Brahmali, can we share the merits?
We can, absolutely. Not only can we shall. So what happened to the sharing? Okay, so this is the... you can put it on the screen now if you wish. Yeah, it's on the should be on the screen.
Yeah, sharing merits with all everyone that you can think of, your departed families and friends, as well as you like to share your metta to your living relatives who are sick or just came out from operation, and as also Bante Dhammavudo and Brother Lu, who has just passed away.
Okay, so here we go. Edang men yatinang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Edang men yatinang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Edang men yatinang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo.
Let's pay respects to the Buddha.
Yeah. Let me just I'll find the right place. I can probably, there we are. So let's do the Arahang Samma Sambuddha together here.
Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi. Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami. Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Sanghang Namami. Let's pay respects to Ajahn. Thank you, Ajahn, for your teachings for the past week in BF as well as in Bangkok. We will be seeing you again end of April for the visa for this year. And announcement tomorrow.